Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having spectacular Thursdays wherever in this great world you may be. We got a lot to get to today. Let me give you the rundown off the top. We're going to talk about Jameis Winston's 3-game suspension for sexual assault. Paul Finebaum versus ESPN in a contract battle. What's going to happen there? The World Cup knockout round is set. And the NBA free agent drama continues to roll. So much to discuss. I want to remind you off the top, now that the World Cup knockout round is set, go to sportsbookreview.com and you can get the best odds for all these games starting on Saturday. I will run through them as best I can when we get to that part of the show. I also want to tell you, what do I always say? You need to get pre-qualified for a mortgage. It's Thursday. Are you house shopping on Saturday? Right now, go to thehomeloanexpert.com and press your wife or girlfriend by getting you guys pre-qualified so you can put in a mortgage bid on the home of your dreams. Or if you've got credit card debt, wipe it out in one fell swoop by going to thehomeloanexpert.com and getting the best possible deal you can. I got to tell you, much to get to today, but we start with Jameis Winston. Officially, a 3-game suspension coming down. Winston will miss the first 3 games of his 4th NFL season, and I got to tell you, this feels like a massive cover-up to me. Let's go through the data of what we know. Jameis Winston apologizes to the Uber driver that he allegedly groped in his statement. The NFL comes out and says they have credible evidence that a groping occurred. They don't give you any of that evidence. They just give you a couple of sentences. If you remember when Ezekiel Elliott's case came out, they released a multi-page report laying out all the different evidence they believe supported Ezekiel Elliott's suspension. Here, mysteriously, there is no release of any statement at all. Tell me how in the world that is justifiable given the seriousness of these allegations. Moreover, I just called the Scottsdale Police Department. We have an admission by Jameis Winston of inappropriate conduct in the Uber. We have a statement from the NFL that they determined credible evidence that she had been groped, this Uber driver. Why is the Scottsdale Police Department not opening an investigation into an alleged sexual assault? I've got a phone call into the Scottsdale Police Department. This feels like a big, fat cover-up. As if that were not enough, Jameis Winston has previous incident of sexual assault / rape alleged against him. And for all of this, he gets a 3-game suspension. Now, before we go any further, I want to stop for a minute and I want to play ESPN's favorite game. What if the races were different? If you had Jameis Winston, instead of being a black guy, if he were a white guy, and you had a white guy who had been accused of raping a girl in college that the police department had never investigated, and he hadn't missed any games for an alleged rape, and then once he got to the NFL and was still drafted number 1 overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and had agreed to a $20 million contract, and the police department did not investigate him in Scottsdale either. We're waiting for a report there. Would they, how long, and then he only got a 3-game suspension for an additional groping. How long would it take ESPN and Jamel Hill and Co. to play the race card? How long would it take for white privilege to be the number 1 subject of discussion all over ESPN? Right now, do you know what's happening? Crickets. Jameis Winston rapes a girl in college potentially, gets away with it, doesn't get investigated, never misses a game, wins a Heisman Trophy, wins a national championship, comes out and gets drafted number 1 overall. How does he celebrate getting drafted number 1 overall? By sexually assaulting another girl in an Uber. And what's the result of all of these allegations? He's going to miss 3 football games. Tell me if we played ESPN's favorite game of what if he were a different race, how this would be getting covered if Jameis Winston were a white guy. This would be front page news. It'd be the primary topic on First Take. It'd be the primary topic on Everything is Racist. Tell me I'm not being 100% true here. You know it deep in your soul that this is true. All right, let's also break this down from Jameis Winston's perspective. How dumb do you have to be? How much of a criminal degenerate do you have to be to have gotten away potentially with rape in college and then to be groping an Uber driver when you had too much to drink? How much of a degenerate sexual deviant do you have to be this dumb? If you got away with rape and you are Jameis Winston, or if you were 100% innocent and you thought you might get charged with rape, would you ever put yourself into a situation again where you could be charged with sexual assault? I'm telling you right now, if I were an NFL quarterback and I ever got charged with sexual assault, do you know what I would do? I'd go Mike Pence on everybody. I would get married and I would never be in a room with a shut door with a woman for the rest of my life. Except for her. Because what do you have to gain versus what you have to lose? Instead, Jameis Winston is either so sociopathic or so dumb that he puts himself into that situation where he can get accused of sexual assault again, and then the NFL investigates it and they find the evidence supports that he did in fact commit sexual assault. Now, some people want to say, what about Ben Roethlisberger? Ben Roethlisberger put himself into awkward and bad situations. Do you know what he did? He got married, and we haven't heard anything about Ben Roethlisberger since a decade ago or whatever the heck it was when he got investigated for sexual assault in a bar. That's been a long time ago. In the modern Me Too era, I think it's a really bad look for the NFL. I think it's tough to justify. I think it's a bad look for the Scottsdale Police Department. It's a bad look for everybody because Jameis Winston is getting away with sexual assault again without having to pay hardly any penalty at all. And if I am the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and I have got to pay this guy $20 million, there is no way remotely that I could possibly pay him $20 million. Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to start the first game, 3 games. They're going to lose the first 3 games. Good chance that Jameis Winston's going to get that entire coaching staff at Tampa Bay as well as the GM fired unless he plays a different caliber of football than he's played in the first 3 years. And I got to be honest with you, there is no way out there. There is no way out there remotely defensible for what Jameis Winston allegedly did and what the NFL has uncovered that he did and what he apologized for. I'm telling you right now, this is a mess. And if you have not read these statements, some people out there are like, oh, no, we don't know. No, he got 3 games for doing it. He got 3 games for sexually assaulting an Uber driver. I'm going to pull it up and read exactly what was said in the NFL's letter. It did not leave anything to doubt about what exactly was going on here. Okay? Here is straight from the NFL, their decision making. Okay? I'm reading from their report. With regard to violations of the personal conduct policy that involve criminal or sexual assault involving physical force or committed against someone incapable of giving consent, a first offense will subject the offender to a baseline suspension without pay of 6 games. Okay? So Jameis Winston was facing 6 games. All right? That is the actual statement. And here is what was said. It makes no sense that they spent all of this time. And here is the report on Jameis Winston. I want to read it to you. In his letter advising Winston of the suspension, they said after full consideration of the record, including a meeting with Winston and his representatives and a written submission by his attorneys, that the driver's account of the incident was consistent and credible. As a result, the investigation concluded that Winston violated the personal conduct policy by touching the driver in an inappropriate and sexual manner without her consent, and that disciplinary action was necessary and appropriate. Jameis Winston also apologized to her. So the NFL determined that Jameis Winston actually sexually assaulted her, and they didn't do anything about it other than a 3-game suspension. That is an ugly, ugly situation. Again, I'm reading directly from the NFL's own statement. This is messy in the extreme. All right. Jameis Winston said, and I'm reading it from his statement, "First and foremost, I would like to say I'm sorry to the Uber driver for the position I put you in. It is uncharacteristic of me, and I genuinely apologize." First of all, is it uncharacteristic of Jameis Winston to sexually assault someone? Nah, I don't think so. Okay? This is straightforward. Like, Jameis Winston admitted that he did it. The NFL said they found evidence that he did it. And I don't understand how in the world they are only suspending him for 3 games. Uncharacteristic indeed. Yeah, more character. It's maybe the most characteristic of Jameis Winston. Any questions about this Jameis Winston case? I think the NFL is not releasing their findings because they're hoping this story is going to disappear and nobody's going to actually chase it down. Again, the NFL, under its own policy, at minimum is required to suspend him for 6 games. Why did they only suspend him for 3 games? Why is there actual findings? Unlike in Ezekiel Elliott's case. Remember when they suspended Ezekiel Elliott for 6 games and Ezekiel Elliott challenged it, they released all the details, they released all the evidence, they released everything they uncovered. Here, all they're doing is burying a couple of sentences in a public letter where they said they found evidence that he had sexually assaulted her. Now, let me say this. I think the idea that the NFL has a personal conduct policy is nonsensical. And I've been on this bandwagon, I've been on this soapbox for a long time. The NFL should not be conducting criminal investigations. My question for everybody out here is this. Why is the Scottsdale Police Department not conducting an investigation into this crime? Did Jameis Winston buy off the alleged victim when he realized that she was more believable than he was? Was there evidence to support what he had done to her other than the initial Uber complaint? Did she not believe it was sexual assault because she was groped? She considers sexual assault to be something more egregious than that, and she didn't want to participate in a disciplinary proceeding or a criminal proceeding. We don't know. I don't know all of the details. She has not told her story publicly, but Jameis Winston is now done for 3 games, and if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had any decency at all, they would cut his ass and say, this is not the behavior that we can allow a quarterback to exhibit on our football team, particularly given his history. Jameis Winston may well have gotten away with rape in college, and then he gets out of college, becomes the #1 overall draft pick, and then ends up making the decision to grope a woman in an Uber in Scottsdale, Arizona. Okay, so I don't know the full total. I'll let you know. I'll obviously update you if the Scottsdale Police Department reaches out and says whether or not they conducted an investigation or whether they are opening an investigation in light of the fact that the NFL has done their own investigation into a crime. I would think that the Scottsdale Police Department could obtain all of the information that the NFL has and use it as the basis for its own investigation. Okay, that is that question. Finebaum. I don't know how many of you read the story in general, okay? I don't know how many of you, and by the way, for everybody out there who's been arguing Mariota versus Winston, your argument's over. The Bucs drafted a rapist and he sexually assaulted a girl, and he hasn't been even close to making the playoffs, all right? It's a bad decision, all right? I got to tell you, Finebaum versus ESPN. The SEC and ESPN are in a Cold War right now because of a lie that former President John Skipper told former SEC Commissioner, the recently deceased Mike Slive. When the SEC launched its SEC network, then they made the decision to partner with ESPN because ESPN came out and said, we will never create another conference network with anyone else, according to people inside of the SEC. This has been well discussed in the SEC. It has not gone public until now. John Skipper said, we'll never do an ACC network. We'll never do a Big 12 network. We'll never do a Pac-12 network. We're only going to do the SEC. And then John Skipper, maybe having forgotten he had made that pledge and that promise, took a little cocaine in the nose and decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to launch the ACC network. And so the SEC, there's been a lot of tension between them and ESPN over the decision to lie to them about starting the ACC network, and also the decision of late to go insanely political. If you watch the SEC network, Do you know what the SEC network has never done? Bring on anybody to talk about politics. They never, ever do it because they know that their audience is there to watch sports. So ESPN has been giving tens of millions of dollars to all these people to do Woke Center, Jamel Hill, Michael Smith, Keith Olbermann, Sarah Spain, Bomani Jones, Pablo Torre. All these far left Woke Center employees are getting multi-million-dollar contracts. And the SEC goes to ESPN and they say, hey, take care of Paul Finebaum's contract. We want to continue his show on this network. And ESPN has been unable to actually be able to get this deal done. And as a result, it is creating a great deal of tension that is kind of rearing its ugly head once more over everything that went down with the way that the ACC network is being launched. And so I wrote about it at Outkick today, talked to a lot of people about it. There is a massive battle going on, and Paul Finebaum is prepared to leave the SEC network and go do a radio show, potentially emanating from Birmingham like he used to do. A lot of different angles that I think could make a lot of sense going forward. This is a messy situation for the SEC, which has told ESPN flat out, get this deal done, and ESPN can't get this deal done. So go read that article if you're curious at all about it. Paul Finebaum, if you're going to give Jamel Hill $10 million, if you're going to give Michelle Beadle $5 million a year, if you're going to pay all these Woke Center employees who bring no audience millions and millions of dollars a year, whether you like Finebaum's show or not, he's producing a massive amount of daily content for the SEC network, and they go on all the time, honestly, to talk on ESPN2. It's just an amazing, messy situation. So pay attention to that. Go read it at Outkick.com. All right, World Cup knockout round. The World Cup and by the way, Paul Finebaum has said, according to sources, that he will not show up at the SEC Media Days on July 16th unless his contract is done. He's prepared to walk. This has turned into a messy situation. All right, I have got all of the World Cup is now set. If you have not been paying attention to the FIFA World Cup so far, all of the games are set. You've got Uruguay going up against Portugal, France going up against Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Belgium, and Japan. So that's one side of the bracket. And then on the other side of the bracket, you've got Spain, Russia, Croatia, Denmark, Sweden against Switzerland. I still can't tell the difference between Sweden and Switzerland, so I have no idea what's going to happen there. You have Colombia going up against England. Senegal ends up losing the tiebreak because with Japan, right? Because they had too many, or Colombia. Was it Colombia? I can't even remember. They end up, Japan. They end up losing the tiebreak with Japan because they had too many yellow cards. That's one of the most brutal ways to lose a tiebreak of all time. Senegal goes down, and so as a result, Japan is in. I like England on the right side of the bracket. I think it will be England going up against Spain would be my prediction based on my brilliant soccer knowledge. England, Spain on the right side of the bracket in the Final Four, and on the left side of the bracket, I believe that we will end up with, that's a tough one. I think it'll be France against Belgium. Belgium is my pick. I think Belgium will beat Brazil. So we will see what happens. I am rooting for England now. We will see what happens in all of these games. They are all set now in stone. I'm not believing in Brazil. I think it's an interesting question. England basically threw this game to end up on the better side of the bracket and get to play against Colombia instead of ending up on the same side of the bracket as France, Mexico, Brazil, all of the talented teams on that side of the bracket. So it should be a good game. I am excited, again, of the games that are going to take place. Brazil against Mexico, 10 a.m. on Monday. A lot of you are 10 a.m. on Sunday. Monday. A lot of you, I believe, are not working. That should be a really pretty awesome game on Monday. And so I'm also intrigued to watch France and Argentina on Saturday. That should be a pretty outstanding game. And then on the right side of the bracket, I'm probably the most interested to watch England against Colombia, would be my breakdown. So all of that is set. The brackets are now set. Now, let's go into NBA free agent drama. Who knows what's happening right now in the NBA free agent drama? Because because every single minute something wild comes out, and it's insane to follow right now. So let me run through the latest that we have heard about the NBA free agent drama. Stephen A. Smith went on and said LeBron James reached out to Kevin Durant to try to get him to join him in LA with the Lakers. LeBron's people have since said that's not true, but what do you expect them to say? Wouldn't you be surprised if LeBron's people were like, yeah, you know what? He did do that. So, of course, you're going to be anticipating that they are going to say it's not true. Which way is this all going to shake out? I am pretty intrigued to see what is going to end up happening. So, LeBron right now is favored to go to the Lakers. The Lakers have a big decision to make. Do they go all in right now for Kawhi Leonard, try to get Kawhi there, sign Paul George, LeBron James, and then surround them with a bunch of really low-quality players in the general sense? I think the play, if they are smart, if you can get LeBron James and you can get Paul George right now, you go grab them and put them on the Lakers. That's probably a team that advances maybe one round in the Western Conference. And then in the offseason, you tell Kawhi Leonard to suck it up, to not say that he's not going to play with San Antonio. He has to wait 1 year to be an unrestricted free agent. That's not that long of a time, even if you're 26 years old and you are a baby. Suck it up. Everybody's had jobs they don't like. You're getting paid $20 million or whatever the heck it is to go play with the San Antonio Spurs for 1 more year, and then you walk. And then you walk and you go join the Lakers, and they're able to keep all of their young talent, and you can sign with the Lakers as an unrestricted free agent. It doesn't make sense to me for Kawhi Leonard to insist on going to the Lakers if that requires the Lakers to try to trade all their good young talent. I think that if you had Kawhi, you had Paul George, and you had LeBron James, you would have a team good enough to contend with the Golden State Warriors. LeBron and Paul George, not good enough. LeBron and Kawhi Leonard, not good enough. The Golden State Warriors are still going to be a prohibitive favorite to win their 4th title in 5 years. But you could at least be building towards something that would lead to a challenge. You would end up with at least another super team. Now, my big issue with the NBA in general is there's only 3 or 4 teams that are good enough to win a title. And if you are a fan of one of the other 25 or 26 teams in the league, you are screwed, because the super team era means that your team has no chance. And I don't even know who these people are who watch the NBA regular season. How or why would you watch the NBA regular season when you know your team has no chance to win a title? Every other major league that people care about, college football, college basketball, the Major League Baseball, NHL, NFL, every other major league, people watch and they don't really know what's going to happen. Your team, certainly there's a favorite, but anything can happen. The NBA narrows it down to 3 or 4 teams at an absolute minimum, and as a result, the overall quality of the league is drastically diminished. So I don't know what the solution is. I think it would be helped. The NBA would a great deal if you gave me a magic wand and you said, hey, Clay Travis, how do you fix this? I think the way to fix the NBA better than anything else would be to seed in the playoffs 1 to 16. And maybe, if you really wanted to make it fun, let every team into the playoff, and the first round is single elimination. Now, that would be pretty entertaining, right? Would you watch the first round of the NBA playoffs if they expanded to 32 teams, and if the first round got to be played at the higher-seeded home team, but it was single elimination, like the NCAA tournament? So the first round, in order to advance to 16, anything could happen. That is a pretty entertaining situation. So the best team in the NBA would play the 32nd best team. They might be 18-point favorites, but in a one-game scenario, it would be just like the NCAA tournament. That's one way to make the NBA pretty awesome in the first round. That would be really cool. Everybody would have a chance to make the playoffs. Everybody would have a chance to win that first round. First round game is played. You'd have some upsets, and then you have a bracket style and you advance to 16, and then you stair-step it up and play best of 7 game series. A one-game elimination the whole way, like NCAA tournament style, would be pretty entertaining. They wouldn't play enough games. Why play the regular season then? Money. You play the regular season for the same reason you play the regular season anywhere. Money and seeding. Like, don't be a bitch. The reason why you would play it is money. People are like, why do they play 162 baseball games? Money. They play 162 baseball games for money. Why do they play 82 baseball games? For money. Why do they play 82 NHL games? For money. All right? That's why they do it. For money. Everything that exists in pro sports, do you know why it exists? For money. Don't be stupid and ask questions like, why do they play so many games? Because they can sell a lot of tickets and they get television money based on it. That would be pretty outstanding. Good high school teacher I had back in 9th grade. He said, make this your life rule. Whenever you wonder, why does X happen? The answer is always, almost always, because of money. Almost always. Now, there's lots of people out there who say, oh, it's because of race, or oh, it's because of gender. Almost always the answer in a capitalistic society for why anything happens is ultimately going to be rooted in money. I always like to say this whenever free agency happens. Remember when Reggie White was one of the first big free agents in the NFL, and he went on his tour and he went around all over the country to visit all these different places, and he said God was going to tell him which team to sign for? Isn't it amazing how often God tells athletes to go to the team that offers them the most money? I love it when guys are like, well, I'm going to go visit all these teams, and then in the end, God's going to tell me where I should go play. It's amazing how often God is in their head, and God tells them to go to the place where they make the most money. I haven't seen very many guys who get 10 offers, and they're like, God told me to take a lot less. God always seems to tell pro athletes to take the most money. It's amazing how that works out. I guess God's a capitalist too. God's right in their head, and he's saying, hey guys, go take the most money. It's pretty amazing to see how often that happens. All right, I'll answer a couple of questions. I'm on my way out. My name is Clay Travis. This is Outkick the Show. What questions do you have out there? Again, Jameis Winston, in my opinion, should be gone. Thoughts on the Supreme Court opening? I did an entire show yesterday almost on the Supreme Court opening. I just tweeted out the odds on who's likely to get the bid. I think that the Republicans should get it done before the midterms. I don't buy into the argument that everybody's making out there on the left-wing side. The reason why the rule, which I think is a bad rule, but I think it was established by Mitch McConnell, who got lucky. Donald Trump pulled off the upset. We're not going to put a new justice on during a Supreme Court year. During a presidential election. So that precedent doesn't apply here. It's a bad argument. I think that the Republicans will all line up behind whoever the Supreme Court choice is, and I think that it's going to be substantial. Now, if you really see, and I've been on this for a little while, so I want you to listen close. I think the worst thing that could happen to the Republican Party, I said this yesterday, but I want to reiterate it. The worst thing that could happen to the Republican Party in terms of winning national elections is overturning Roe versus Wade. You might be an abortion should not be legal person. Only about 40% of the nation agrees with you. 60% do not. If you ever overturn Roe v. Wade, the Republicans are going to be like the dog that catches the car. When the dog can run along beside the car and he can yap and he can bark, he looks like a tough guy. When he actually catches the car, one of two things happens. Either he gets dragged to his death while holding on to the bumper, or he bites the bumper, loses teeth, and might break his jaw. Nothing good happens when the dog catches the car, all right? The Republicans, if they overturn Roe v. Wade, are the equivalent of somebody who's catching the car. I'm telling you right now, it doesn't make any sense at all. I think it is a mess if that actually ends up transpiring. So keep that in mind as you move forward. Again, I think if ESPN was not being run by a bunch of drunken idiots, they would make a decision on Paul Finebaum. They would sign him. They would get him done. I think it's a smart move given how much they've paid everybody else. If you like this show, encourage you to share it with your friends. I'm Clay Travis. This is called Outkick the Show. We'll be live tomorrow, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern. WWE's on fire. Twitter's on fire. Under Armour, I told you to buy, has been doing pretty well lately. And I hope all of you have made a lot of money. Gambling picks were not great, but if you followed my stock advice, you have gotten filthy rich in the past year. So I appreciate all of you for coming and hanging out. What somebody said, update on Jason Martin. Follow him. Ask him questions. He's got a gig. I don't know when he's going to be able to announce it, but he's not on the show anymore. He'll be guest hosting next week. Hopefully by then he'll be able to announce it, but I don't try to tell other people about their news. So I love all you guys. Appreciate all the time that you spend with us. If you are smart, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you'll not give Jameis Winston $20 million. He's not good enough, and the NFL needs to come clean on this cover-up situation. DBAP, boys and girls, but sometimes SBAP. I'm Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. See you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Fox Sports Radio, 300 AM FM stations nationwide. This is Outkick the Coverage, and I am Clay Travis. Kisses, boys and girls.